Ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome onto the show today, Mr. Scott Shephard. Good morning, Scott. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Become Your Own Superhero. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Welcome from the southern United States. It's very hot here, but I'm glad to be here and very excited to participate.
Well, I checked the temperature before we got on the call, Scott, and the official temperature, I believe, said hotter than a camel's ass was the official reading.
That's pretty hot.
Scott, I don't often do an introduction in terms of background, but I'm going to do it today because I think it's extra important. Scott Shephard is a affectionately known now self-proclaimed reformed racist who is a former Grand Dragon within the Ku Klux Klan and has now turned his life around for the better. And I wondered if you could just explain the genesis of where this all came about to paint a picture for people that aren't super duper familiar with the Klan and this white supremacy movement that you were involved with for such a long time.
You're talking about how I got involved, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was born in 1959 in Indianola, Mississippi. And it was right in the middle of the hotbed of racial trouble at the time. It was also the home of B.B. King and the White Citizens Council. I was raised in a very dysfunctional family, had an alcoholic father that was very, very violent. And there was times when he would come into the house and tear all the furniture up. It would be a piece sitting on the, standing on its legs. And it abused my mother. And of course, there was 5 kids there in the house. And actually, it probably instilled PTSD in all of us. I know it did me. Because just to name the 2 things that I witnessed, and it wasn't the worst, but it was bad. And when he would come in with a butcher knife, chop up the mattresses in the house, slice them up. We had some baby kittens next to a heater in our den, trying to keep them warm. And he came in and in drunken rage and took each one of those kittens one by one and threw them across the room and splattered them on the wall right in front of us. So those are just 2 things that I witnessed. And like I said, there was many more, but yes, it affected me pretty bad. And I didn't have any self-esteem. I didn't like myself. I hated myself. I didn't like anyone. And I didn't feel like I had a family, which family was destroyed, very dysfunctional. And I was looking for something to fit into. And right there in my backyard was the Ku Klux Klan. And that's where the direction I went. Now, later on, as I got into the movement, I even sought out the Italian Mafia and tried to get involved with the Italian Mafia, but I was the smartest person in the world at that time, and I was so naive, I didn't know you had to be full-blooded Italian to get inside there. But that didn't work out. But I did make contact with them, and also the Irish Republican Army that was in New York City doing some recruitment at the time. But me being from Indianola, Mississippi, a very small town and very, deep south, of course, I didn't have any way to get to New York City. And so that didn't work out either. And I'll tell you this, if ISIS had been around, it's very possibility I could have gotten involved with something like that.
Wow, you didn't think about joining Scouts or, Cub Scouts or...
Well, actually, I was a Cub Scout and a Boy Scout.
Oh, wow.
It sure was. And I always felt, I always felt out of place in those two groups. Really,
Why
I
do you
didn't
think?
feel comfortable.
Yeah, why do you think that was, Scott?
Well, because I had low self-esteem, and like I said, I didn't like anyone. I didn't like myself, and I was just it wasn't what I was looking for. What I was looking for was actually love, and I would say that's what I was looking for. And when I got inside the Ku Klux Klan, I had an immediate feeling of importance, and I said, "Oh, I found what I'm looking for."
The Ku Klux Klan, in my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, was set up in the late 1800s as a way to run tyrannical, uh, like governors out of particular parts of that southern part of America. And it wasn't actually an inherently racist organization at all. It was more like an organization that was banding together to, there was a statesman that had increased taxes threefold, and it was to protect a lot of the white and black farmers. And then there was the general that was a famous Confederate general that's got that huge big statue. There was the rebranding or the renaming that, and because it started to get violent and it started to get a bit out of hand, so he actually disbanded the Klan, and then it was reformed later on and became a lot more racist, and then eventually became what it is today. Does that sound about right?
That's pretty close, but there was also, even before Nathan Bedford Forrest, I think is the general you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one.
I mean, there was some violence going on, but even before, before he disbanded them. So they've been a terrorist organization since the beginning of time. They would use their ropes and hooks to intimidate blacks, and yes, even whites that they felt weren't doing right. So it was a terrorist organization from the very beginning.
So talk me through what a day in the life of being a Grand Dragon, which is someone incredibly senior within the clan. What's that like?
Well, Grand Dragon, of course, I was appointed Grand Dragon when I was 19 years old, and that's really not you know doesn't really happen that much. It's always older people, but I was 19 years old and was appointed Grand Dragon. And on the level of politics, like you get your mayor, governor, and president, the Grand Dragon is equal to the governor of a country. I mean, of a state here in like here in the United States. I'm not sure if y'all got providences or parishes or what in Australia or counties, but they was the head of a state.
We've got states, yeah, states, and then the federal government.
Right. And the Imperial Wizard was like the president. Now, before I finally left the Klan, I was appointed. I went into another Klan organization and was appointed Imperial Wizard of that Klan organization, the top position. But I didn't stay there very long because I was already planning an exit to get out, and that's what I did. I turned my back and walked away.
Well, I'd ordinarily say congratulations for any other field, but given it's the Klan, I think we'll probably skip it on this occasion. The role that you were playing there, Scott, from what I can understand, it was more of a shot caller type of role. What type of things were you responsible for in that role?
Well, I was responsible for, passing orders down from the Imperial Wizard to the normal clansmen, just regular clansmen below me in different parts of the state. But I was also very heavily involved in recruitment. And even though I was Grand Dragon, I think all my energy and work that I did was in recruitment and trying to get other people inside the Klan and trying to bring the ranks up to higher numbers.
Are you able to share with us, Scott, some of the things that you have been responsible for when you're in the Klan?
Well, like I said, I was responsible mainly for, like when we were having lawsuits, we were having rallies. Excuse me. I was responsible for putting rallies together in the different parts of the state. We had to file lawsuits in Nashville in federal court when we were denied permits, and I was responsible for filing those lawsuits. And then, like I said, back to the recruitment, I was very heavily into recruiting. And one reason I guess that happened was, I went to college and I became a funeral director and embalmer, and I had to wear a suit and tie every day. That's just how it was. And I think they kind of, extorted it or used that because they were working on image change, trying to become more mainstream and blend into society. And here I was, I had to wear a suit every day. I think they kind of exploited that.
I think probably my question's more around the violence and the disruption side of things. Like, is it what they talk about in the Klan and like lighting a cross on fire in the front lawn of someone? Was there that type of thing?
Oh yes, that was one of the main tools that they used for intimidation. And then, of course, if the cross burning intimidation didn't work, they would definitely go back and go to the more aggressive means. And there was a lot of beatings and to near death of the people they were beating.
How is the Klan funded, Scott? Where do they get their money from?
They have membership pays dues. Of course, a lot of the members, weren't really wealthy, but inside the Klan, there are lawyers and doctors that are inside there, and then they would take donations from the general public, people that might not be a member of the Klan that believed in their beliefs. And they would donate money to them, and they would use that, and that's what they operated on. Now, at one time, there was a group called the Order that killed Alan Berg, a talk show host in the United States in Colorado, I think it was. But at that time, they were involved in robbing armored cars and banks and using the money to, further their goals.
Wow. So it's like a properly run organization, really, when you break it down, a properly run sort of domestic terrorist organization, I suppose.
Well, exactly. But they're not just domestic anymore. As you may well know, they're in Australia and they're in the UK. They're in the different parts of the world now, mainly in like London, England, and that part of the nation.
And as a percentage of the population, let's say in the US, do you have any idea of the numbers as a percentage?
Oh gosh, at one time I thought the numbers were fading, going backwards. But recently I've taken a second look at it, and I've really been blown away at the amount of memberships that have grown. And it's not just people in the Ku Klux Klan, or see, you don't have just one Ku Klux Klan. You got many different independent Ku Klux Klans, too. So you don't really know the number of the membership that they have. So it's hard to, kind of estimate what they, how many members they got. And then you got different other organizations that that have that mentality and operate with that mentality. And then you got those in the general public that aren't a member of the Ku Klux Klan or any other group, but they got that mentality. And that's why I've started trying to explain to people, the day of the robes and hoods are kind of fading away. You got, because it's the mentality that's really dangerous. And if you remember Charlottesville, Virginia, where they had a young girl killed and hit by a car, and night before they had a tiki light celebration, and I was really blown away again then, because not one of them had a robe or hood or anything. They were dressed in plain clothes, khaki, and the face wasn't covered. So it's becoming to be a more dangerous situation.
So clearly your childhood was, like you say, Scott, an incredibly dysfunctional one. Do you think that all the other clan members that you met, or a large percentage of them at least, came from similarly disaffected type of backgrounds?
Absolutely. The ones I talk to, and even the ones I talk to now that I've worked with, trying to, get them to leave that organization and that way of life, it's kind of a common denominator. They usually have now, not all of them, they're not all cut from one cookie cutter, but majority of them come from a lifestyle like that, background, broken homes, and wards of the state, and just very dysfunctional families. But yeah, it's very common.
So you've come out the other side of this, and what is your new mission now?
Well, to start with, I guess, I say 2008. 2008 is, I got sick. I'd been working in hurricane relief of Hurricane Katrina down in Louisiana, and I came home and I got sick, and I thought I had the flu. I didn't. It kept on and lasted, and I ended up going to the doctor, and it wasn't. My stomach was beat up with stomach ulcers. And like I told you, I think before we started the program, I had no doubt what caused it, and it was all the guilt and anger and hatred that I held over the years that ate myself up from the inside. Because I left the Klan, I went into seclusion, and I was in seclusion for years, before. And then I had to go to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, because I had the sister that had breast cancer, and take care of her. But after I got sick, I ended up having to have 3/4 of my stomach removed. And 6 months later, I had to have another surgery, and then I almost died. And I had a lot of recovery time. I had a lot of time to think and reminisce of my entire life. My sister, on her deathbed, asked me, said, do you regret the things that you did when you were in the Klan? I said, yeah, I do. And she told me, she said, well, you can take those things and use them and help people. And I heard what she said, but I just kind of blew it off. But after I got sick and had time to think and reminisce and everything, I remembered what my sister said. And then I remember seeing a gentleman on TV when I was inside the movement, which was Darrell Davis, and what he was doing. And at the time, in the mindset I was in, I thought he was a crackpot. And I tell him that today, and we laugh about it. And
so, Scott, just to cut you off there, can you just explain quickly who Darrell Davis is?
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, can you please explain quickly who Darrell Davis is for the listeners?
Sure, Darrell Davis is a musician from Bethesda, Maryland, area, Silver Springs. He's a boogie woogie piano player. He played with Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, many celebrity musicians he has played with. And he also wrote a book, Clandestine Relationships. And he's got another mission. He goes around and meets with active Klan members and tries to sit down and have a conversation with them and try to help them get out of the movement. Because he always had this question, how can you hate me if you don't know me, that he developed at a very young age. And it's been very successful. He's been, I think, responsible for getting like maybe a little over 200 people out of the Klan. And I saw him, like I said, I saw him on TV. And at the time, I thought he was a crackpot, but when I was recovering, a show came on Discovery Channel about Darrell Davis. They were running a special on him. And at that time, what he said made sense. And I contacted him through Facebook, and he responded, sent me his phone number. We talked several times on the phone, and he eventually flew down to Memphis to visit me. And we sat down, our relationship just grew from there. And it's just like he says, you sit down for 5 minutes, you find out you have something in common even with your worst enemy. And actually we did. B.B. King from Indianola, Mississippi, he played with B.B. King. And being a musician, that was something we had in common, and we kind of built from there. And I would say I was caught in the middle of a hard, dark place. I had on one side of the fence, I didn't have any friends because I joined the Klan and no one wanted to have anything to do with me. And the Klan definitely didn't want to have anything to do with me because I was a race traitor in their terms, because I'd left the movement.
You say race traitor, is it?
Yes.
Race traitor is the term for someone who's defected from the Klan.
Race traitor, yeah. And so, that was the term I was labeled with. And of course, they really weren't friends anyway. But Darrell Davis, like I said, I reached out to him during this dark spot that I was in. I even contemplated suicide. And Darrell Davis reached out to me, flew down and met me. And not only did he extend his hand, he opened his heart to me, and we just built the relationship from there. And he's no longer just a friend; he's a brother.
That's fantastic, and I think you might have overlooked one really important point there, Scott. For the listeners, Darrell Davis is an African American man. So,
yes.
So
absolutely.
That man has some serious balls, as we would say. And it'd be fantastic to talk to him and have him on the show, Scott, and talk us through that. It's an incredible
I'm
thing.
Sure he would be happy to. And something else I didn't mention during this time that I was in the Klan, and of course the Klan didn't know it, but there was always this little bitty voice in the back of my head: do you really believe the things you're doing and preaching and going around and recruiting people? Do you really believe in the things you say you believe in? And that's because there was something that nobody really knew, but I was raised by a black lady.
Okay, can you just explain that in a little bit more detail for us?
Yeah, I was raised by a black lady. There's a black lady that was a caretaker for my grandmother. My mother was adopted, and she was working for my grandmother when they brought my mother in on a pillow as a little baby. She raised my mother. She raised my older brother. She raised me, my older sister, and my 2 younger siblings. And it wasn't just it wasn't just that. We were family. We were family. I loved her and she loved me. And I, we had get-togethers with her family, and it was just, you know, like I said, it was just a unique thing. We was all one big family, and I grew up with her grandson. His name is Skimp. Lives out in California, and actually name's Ricardo Hawkins, but I've always known him as Skimp. We used to play together as kids and visit, and even when I would go down to Rebecca's house, you know, it was the same thing. I'd play with the people in the neighborhood, and a lot of them that I'm in touch with today, that and we're the best of friends, and we're still family. And actually, it's really sad that I'm very grateful that I got to make amends with Rebecca of things that I did before she passed away. I went to her door, and not only did she open the door, she opened her arms and hugged me and said, "I knew you'd be back home soon." And if nothing ever negative was ever said about it. And she even did some, you know, film with me, and short documentary, and it was really great to be able to work with her. I'll cherish those times, you know, forever. And she passed away actually 2 years ago, 2 days before her 104th birthday.
Wow.
And I was not able to attend the funeral because I was in the hospital in Louisville, Kentucky for surgery. And her grandkids, they streamed the funeral live on Facebook just so that I could see it. It was really an emotional thing, and really, I'm very grateful.
This is so fascinating, Scott. So you were raised effectively by this incredible woman, Rebecca, this African-American woman, and her family. And during the time that you were in the Klan, was she aware of what was going on?
Oh yeah, she was aware of what was going on. She didn't like what I was doing, but she didn't disown me. She, I kind of put her to the side, and I didn't visit or anything like that for years. And finally, when I got out, is when I went to her door and knocked on it, and she opened her arms and hugged my neck. But yeah, she in one of the documentaries, she said she didn't, you know, never gave up on me. And she said if I continued to do that, she wouldn't like me either. And I could understand that. But I learned a lot from her because, you know, my grandmother did not like, she didn't want to have anything to do with me as a kid and a baby. And I was actually named after Rebecca. Her name was Rebecca Scott Hawkins, and they named me after Becky. And it was just, you know, a crazy, crazy, crazy thing.
I find this so incredibly interesting, Scott, and thank you so much for sharing this with us. What this seems to highlight to me, and this is a reoccurring theme with a lot of people that are in a similar situation and have gone through similar stuff to you, Scott, in terms of being disaffected and seeking solace in things that are inherently unhealthy for us as a result of experienced trauma, particularly as a child. And, you know, the upbringing that you had, as I said before, was an incredibly dysfunctional one. And it stresses to me the importance of building families and keeping families together, and to mitigate the likelihood of broken families and abuse. Because if you can address these major issues, then you'll largely stop a lot of the disaffected youth. You know, if you're talking about like African-American children that experience the same stuff as you, they are more likely to head towards like-minded individuals as well and end up in the African-American gangs. And like you say, it didn't really matter which gang it was. It was just that feeling of being welcomed and being validated, really. And so I think,
Actually, it's the same thing as the African American gangs, you know, street gangs. You know, it's actually no different. That's what they did. They're looking for a place to fit in, and they found it with these gangs. And I've had a chance to, you know, today I talk to adults and young people and groups and school kids that come through town on the civil rights journey and adults. And I've also had a chance to talk to some gang members. So, you know, I reach out to all.
so my next question, Scott, how do we improve things going forward?
To improve things, it's simple, really. People wouldn't realize how simple it is, and it's one word: communication. You know, communication and conversation. You know, we've been divided for so long. We need to sit down and be able to sit down at the table and talk. And it's just like Daryl Davis said, some of his talk. You know, you may be pounding on the table, hand on the table, and maybe raising your voice, but you're still talking and you're not fighting. And sooner or later, you're going to find something you got in common and you build from there. But it's really simple. It's just communication and conversation. It is one of the main things that I think we really need in this, you know, in this era of what we're going through.
One thing I neglected to ask earlier, Scott, was when you finally exited the Klan, what were the ramifications? And were you fearful for your life at any point?
Well, no, I really wasn't fearful for my life anymore. You know, when I joined, you know, of course, I hunted the Imperial Wizard down and talked with him, and he told me, he said, well, we're having a rally in Tupelo, Mississippi on a certain day. So I went to that rally. It wasn't far from my home. And the regular Klansmen and the Imperial Wizard and Grand Dragon of the state at that time, they all put their arm around my shoulders and said, oh, we'll take care of you and protect you and teach you things. And they did. But they just taught me the wrong things. So I really wasn't fearful for my life at that time, but they send you through a series or classes and things like that actually don't do nothing but brainwash you. And then you can start fearing for your life because you find out a lot of inside secrets.
Effectively, the Klan college, really, isn't it? Not to be confused with clown college.
Exactly, and they've got what they call also an inner circle. The inner circle of the Klan is, you know, they got members inside that inner circle that not just all general population of the Klan is in. It's just a number of different Klan members, and the general population doesn't even know who they are. Excuse me. And the reason for this is the people that are inside the center middle of the circle are the ones that go out and commit acts of violence. And the general public don't know who they are in case law enforcement comes around and start asking questions. Nobody knows anything except for those that were inside the circle and committed these violent acts.
The incidents that have been going on in the US recently, like the whole George Floyd thing, is there any chance that the police involved, and I don't want to get caught up in the politics because I don't know enough about it, but is there any chance that they are involved with the Klan?
Well, as of now, nothing's come out. I know that police officers had problems in the past and with African Americans and mistreating them and abuse, but it really doesn't matter. Like I said, it goes back to that mentality. And he had that racist mentality, and that's what's really dangerous. You can be standing in the grocery store, and the person behind you that had that mentality, and you'd never know it. And I use the example: you can line 5 Klansmen up against the wall and the ropes and hoods. You know what they stand for. But then you line 5 of say those in Charlottesville, Virginia, that were dressed in plain clothes, no mask or anything, line them up. You don't know what they believe or who they are. So that's where the danger really is headed to.
Do you have any plans to run for government to try and promote your message, Scott?
No, not right now, because like I said, with some of the health problems that I had, that I'm finally getting a hold of and getting myself back to normal. But I did run for governor when I was inside the Klan movement, and I ran for governor of Tennessee, wide open as a racist and a white nationalist agenda. So that's where I stood on that. I mean, I I was really out there. I mean, I ran for that and then state representative, and actually did not come in last on the state representative. There were 7 candidates, and I think I came in third out of 7.
Really? Wow. What percentage of the votes did you get? Do you mind me asking?
That was back in 1992. I'll be honest with you, I really don't recall. But it was a big district. It was a big district, and even some of the ones that polled less than myself were incumbents. So
Wow.
I beat out some incumbents in that race.
So that really shows us that there's a reasonable following, certainly behind this type of organization, albeit a few years ago. I think it's really important to also not get caught up in consuming the news and just being bombarded by a lot of fear mongering by the news. I've been to the US on 2 occasions for good periods of time. I haven't made it to the southern states as yet, although, sorry, I've been to Texas. And my experience with the US was nothing but positive. The only challenge that I had was when I arrived in San Francisco, and Border Patrol put me through the ringer because my electronic visa hadn't registered in their system. And I was detained for like 3 hours while they were trying to figure it out. But apart from that, I had a really wonderful experience, and the experience with every race and creed throughout that journey was really great. And I think, like you say, that whole communication thing, if people are able to start the conversation, then you can really connect with people through storytelling and work out that you've got commonality, like you and Daryl, and just forge this amazing turnaround that you've been able to do. I think it's really fantastic, and I think you should be super proud.
Oh, well, the United States is, a great country. Yes, you can come and have a great experience and stuff, but you get down into the southern part, and there's a whole different country down south. And just like the state of Georgia. The state of Georgia is very, very clannish. They stick together, and there's a lot of Klan activity out of Georgia and always has, but they're a tight knit group and they stick together. And you can, if you ever go to Georgia, you can feel the effects of that.
Well, I hope by the time I get there that things are starting to improve themselves. My own personal views are like we are no different to each other, and I've had moments in my life where I've said racist things, and it was an ignorance thing. You know, growing up in New Zealand, we've got a rather large Māori and Pacific Island cultures all throughout New Zealand. In Australia, you got all the a lot of Indigenous Aboriginal people as well, Torres Strait Islanders, and when you actually get a chance to sit down and just get to know anyone, you know, as long as they're inherently a good person, if they come from a place of love and abundance, you always get on well with them if that's where you're coming from as well. And it's pretty obvious that trying to stay hateful for extended periods of time is A, not sustainable, but B, really fucking bad for your health as well.
Oh, yes, very much so. And I'm a prime example of that. I mean, you know, I'll be honest with you, you know, I got really deep into the white supremacist group. You know, it was I knew some of the members that and actually the Imperial Wizard of the Klan group that killed the 3 civil rights leaders, members in down in Philadelphia, Mississippi, that inspired the movie Mississippi Burning. And then there was Byron De La Beckwith, who murdered Medgar Evers. I was a godson to him. So I got really deep into the movement and really close to a lot of the older generation, and most of those in jail are dead now. But it was an experience. I say I hate that I had to do it, but in a way, it's made me the person I am today.
Well, I think, you know, for your own life, Scott, I think it's important not to hold on to any regret and just, you know, like you say, realize that this is sort of everything that's led up to this point has allowed you to become this person today. And we're not really defined by what we've done. It's sort of who we've become in a lot of ways. And I know there's always exceptions to that, I think, but, you know, for you to turn around your life like this and now be a staunch advocate for race relations is really powerful. And your story is really extraordinary. And I hope that people listening agree as well. You've got a daughter, and have you got any other children?
I got twin boys and a daughter. And actually, my involvement with these movements damaged my relationship with my family. And one of my sisters, they didn't agree with what I was doing, and my daughter didn't. And even one of my sons, is an adult now, he got him, you know, he was starting to get involved and follow in my footsteps and do some of the things, intimidation that I started out doing. But gratefully, I got out in time that he didn't take action or let that life, you know, take him over, and there's no problem with that whatsoever now. And even my daughter, I didn't see my daughter for years and years because she didn't believe in what I was doing, and she got married and had a baby, and I didn't even know it. But our relationships, you know, with my kids now are great. We made amends, and you know, couldn't be any better.
Wow, it's really great, Scott. And the reason I heard about you is that you were just recently on Tony Robbins' podcast as part of an amazing panel of really fascinating people in North America. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I was on, of course, not only that, you know, my daughter and I appeared on Steve Harvey show with Daryl Davis. And I was able to talk to my daughter and apologize for my past and the way things went at that time. But yes, I just did Tony Robbins, and that was a very a very nerve-wracking show I did because, Tony Robbins is, a very, very intelligent man that has a lot of knowledge about everything, and it was very nerve-wracking, but it was a great experience. He invited me to a retreat that he had or is having in November, and also one in December as his guest, and down in Florida where he has sometimes like 15,000 people. And I'm seriously considering attending one of them.
Well, I would strongly recommend, as I mentioned the other day, that you get down to that. That'll be a life-changing experience, I'm sure. But going on the Tony Robbins and the Steve Harvey show wasn't the only time that you're on the telly. You were on the Sally Jesse Raphael show back in the 90s dressed in your Klan outfit. Is that right?
Yes.
You are the bloke that we, because we had about 3 TV channels in New Zealand at that time, and Sally Jesse Raphael and Phil Donahue were shows that were available. And I remember seeing episodes of Klan members on there, and that might have been you.
Yes, I was on both shows. I was on Phil Donahue and Sally Jesse Raphael, and there was a couple more that I was on at the time. But yeah, it's very possible you did see me on there. I was on Sally Jesse Raphael. I think I was on her show twice.
So you haven't.
I was on her show twice, and Phil Donahue, and I was on there as a full-blown racist and spouting racist ideas and stuff. And that's the reason I use the term reform racist, because that's exactly what I was. It doesn't matter what I doubted about myself. I was still guilty of everything, just like a regular Klansman. I mean, I take full responsibility for what I did, and I'm just as responsible as they are.
Scott, this has been, for me at least, an incredibly interesting conversation. And I'll say it again, we're really grateful that you were able to come on and share some of your stories. Before we wrap things up, is there any message that is important to you that you want to convey to our audience today?
Yeah, I guess the main thing is, like I said, I went back to the question that you asked, and I told you it was communication and conversation. It's just like sitting in a cafeteria somewhere. You walk in a cafeteria and you see whites sitting with whites and blacks sitting with blacks, and there's nothing wrong with that. They just feel comfortable with their own people. But, all it takes is getting up from your seat and walking across the room and sit down with them and start talking with them. And that's the main thing we have to do, is just beef up our conversation and communication and see what we come up with in common and build from there. It's not really a hard thing to do. You can feel uncomfortable at first, but sure. But the way I look at it, never give up. We can never give up. There is a chance for change. People can change, and I changed. And if I changed, anybody can change. Because I was, like I said, really deep into the movement, and I think that's where we need to start.
Scott Shephard, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you for sharing your views, your ideas, and your wonderful message on the Become Your Own Superhero show. Scott Shephard, everybody.